So, back in February 2026, a conflict kicked off that completely changed the way we think about war. Seriously, it wasn't just about missiles and troops anymore. This new kind of war was fought with algorithms, malicious code, and swarms of autonomous drones. Let's dive right into what this new battlefield actually looks like.
This quote right here, it just says it all, doesn't it? It paints such a vivid picture of a war being fought on two fronts at the exact same time. You've got the physical, kinetic assault you can see, and then you have this invisible shadow war happening in cyberspace. This is modern conflict. It lives in that space right between the physical and the digital.
All right, to get our heads around this, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the battlefield itself. Then, we'll get into the AI commanders, the whole shadow offensive in cyberspace and those drone swarms. After that, we'll check out the new defenses being built and, finally, talk about what this all means for the future of war.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's February 2026. The United States and Israel launch a joint offensive called Operation Epic Fury. Now, the official goal was to take out Iran's nuclear and military sites, but it was how they did it that really changed the game.
You see, from the word go, this was a hybrid assault. At the very same moment that stealth jets and cruise missiles were hitting their targets, a huge cyber attack was unleashed to just dismantle the digital backbone of the country. These weren't two separate plans. It was one single, totally integrated strategy.
And that brings us to the first really big piece of this puzzle, the AI commanders. This is where human strategy gets fused with machine speed and precision. The whole pace of the battlefield just accelerates to a point that makes you wonder, where does human oversight even fit in anymore?
Get a load of this number, 11 seconds. That's how long it took for an AI system to analyze more than 50,000 different signals and then deploy jamming techniques to shut them down. And the result? Iranian command and control was completely paralyzed for 47 very critical minutes. Think about that. A task that would have taken a whole team of humans ages to do was done by an algorithm in, literally, the blink of an eye.
And what's so fascinating is how both sides were using AI, but for totally different things. The US and Israel were using platforms like Palantir for sifting through massive amounts of data and for predictive targeting with systems like Lavender. Iran, on the other hand, was all about asymmetric tactics. They used generative AI to pump out deepfake propaganda and sent out unmanned ground robots like the Aria.
So you had the physical assault, and at the exact same time, you had this shadow offensive. While the bombs were falling, one of the biggest cyber campaigns in history was unfolding, with the goal of crippling Iran from the inside out. Now, this didn't just come out of nowhere. The seeds for this were planted way back in 2010 with the Stuxnet virus. But by 2025, things had escalated a lot. So in response to this 2026 offensive, Iran fired up its Great Epic initiative, which was basically their way of crowdsourcing revenge by activating hundreds of different proxy hacker groups.
The main strategy they used is something called digital decapitation. It's a wild concept. Instead of, say, blowing up a government building, you use wiper malware to just erase all the data on every single computer inside it. It paralyzes their leadership, messes up essential services, and just creates maximum chaos with minimum physical damage.
Okay, let's talk about the third piece of this puzzle, the drone swarms. So if AI made decisions faster and cyber attacks paralyzed the enemy, drones are what made it possible for anyone to project serious force and to do it cheaply. And here we have a tale of two kamikaze drones. Iran really pioneered this tactic with its cheap but super effective Shahed 136. But then, and this is a pretty ironic twist, the US came back with its own version, the Lucas drone. It was basically reverse engineered from the Shahed, designed to be used in swarms, and was even described as American-made retribution. The reason this is so devastatingly effective is a strategy called saturation. I mean, why would you fire one missile that costs millions of dollars when you can launch 100 drones that cost 50 grand each? You just throw so many of them at the enemy that you overwhelm their defenses. You make them waste incredibly expensive interceptors on dirt-cheap threats until, eventually, they just run out. Of course, every time a new weapon comes along, there's a frantic race to build a new shield for it. So how are countries even trying to defend against this triple threat of AI, cyber attacks, and drone swarms? Well, a perfect example is Israel's layered defense system. You've got the Arrow system for any long-range threats, David Sling for stuff in the mid-range, and of course, the famous Iron Dome for short-range rockets. What's absolutely key here is that all of these systems are now being beefed up with AI to make faster, more predictive threat assessments. And believe me, the next wave of defense tech is already here.
We're talking about everything from special counter-drone platforms that can hijack swarms with radio frequencies to armed robot dogs, hypersonic interceptors, and even AI that can launch its own countermeasures without any human input. The line between offense and defense is getting really blurry, really fast.
So, where does this all leave us? What does this new kind of battlefield really mean for the future of warfare?
What we're seeing is a massive paradigm shift. Victory in the 21st century isn't just about planting a flag on a hill anymore. It's about who has mastery over data. The winner is whoever can collect, process, and act on information the fastest. It has become a war of information dominance.
And that leaves us with a really deep and frankly unsettling question. As code and algorithms start to replace traditional conquest, you have to ask, who's ultimately responsible when an AI makes a lethal decision? It's probably the biggest ethical challenge of this entire new era of warfare.
Look, this is just scratching the surface of this incredibly complex shift. To learn more, be sure to visit our website, Farah Solution.